You know what? Sometimes life hits you so hard, you don't even see it coming, like a punch you can't dodge no matter how fast you try. That's exactly how Charles felt that Saturday afternoon when he found himself standing in front of faded apartment door, eviction letter in his pocket, ready to sign away something he didn't even know he had. Yeah, that happened. Charles Morgan was no stranger to evictions. Running a real estate empire in Lagos meant a constant shuffle of tenants, missed rents, and cold paperwork. Names, units, numbers, just data on a screen to him. But this time, something about Unit 7 be caught at the edge of his memory, something he couldn't quite place. So instead of sending the usual faceless notice, he decided to deliver it himself. Meanwhile, Karen Mitchell, sharp as a tack and used to getting her way, was fuming at the market queue. She wasn't used to being told no, especially by Mary Okafor, a woman with nothing but a faded blouse and quiet dignity who didn't bat an eye at Karen's sharp demands. That moment didn't just bruise Karen's pride, it ignited something inside her, a seed of irritation that wouldn't go away. Later that evening, Karen sat in Charles's luxury apartment, swirling wine with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "There's this woman living in one of your older buildings, Mary Okafor. Unpleasant, disrespectful. People like that don't belong in our world." Charles half listened, already tuning out her bitterness. But Karen's words lingered, especially when she revealed that Mary's boy lived in apartment 7B. Karen's nightly runs turned into quiet reconnaissance. She trailed Mary one evening, saw the boy clutching his mother's hand, and noticed the worn keys dangling from her fingers. Something about that child unsettled Karen, a familiarity she couldn't explain. Charles, oblivious to the brewing storm, was nursing a headache when Karen brought the news. "I saw her again today," she said, a calculated edge in her voice. "And you know it's bad for your image. Someone like her, living on your property. It just doesn't look right." Charles sighed, knowing that image was everything. "Fine," he said. "I'll look into it." The next day, Charles found himself navigating unfamiliar streets, the air thick and buzzing with life so different from his polished world. When he knocked on the cracked door of Unit 7B, the face that met him stopped him, cold Mary Okafor, calm yet guarded, standing in faded clothes, her eyes sharp as ever. And then there was the boy, standing behind her, a mirror image of Charles, right down to the faint dimple that appeared when he looked up. "I'm here about the eviction," Charles finally said, voice tighter than he intended. Mary's steady nod and offer to talk or not was like a gauntlet thrown down. Inside, the apartment smelled of boiled rice and menthol balm, modest but warm in a way his penthouse never was. Mary handed Charles an old envelope, yellowed and worn, a letter she had written over a decade ago, never sent because he vanished before she could mail it. Inside, words laid bare a story Charles had long buried: how they met one night on campus, how she found out she was pregnant, how she tried to reach him but hit dead ends, and how she raised their son alone. He hadn't known, didn't even know her last name. The weight of those 11 years crashed down like thunder. He saw in Mary's tired eyes a pain he couldn't fix with money or power. And that boy, Precious, was fighting a battle with a heart defect, surgeries, hospital visits, medical bills piling up faster than Mary's gigs could cover. Charles sat stunned, the eviction letter suddenly poison in his pocket. This wasn't some defaulting tenant. This was his son, his family, and he had been signing their eviction without even knowing. He left that day without a word, swallowed by guilt and disbelief. Lagos buzzed on around him, indifferent to the man whose world had just tilted on its axis. That night, Charles sat alone in a dim bar, staring at the letter, replaying every word Mary had written. He wondered how he missed it all: the sun, the suffering, the silence. The next morning, he showed up unannounced at his cousin Solomon's place, ragged and haunted. "If someone handed you 11 years of your life back, would you take it?" he asked. Solomon shook his head in disbelief as Charles revealed the truth. "I almost signed my own son's eviction," he whispered. The shame was unbearable. Karen noticed the change in Charles, the haunted look, the late nights, the distance. When she found the letter hidden in his jacket, her jealousy and rage boiled over. This woman, Mary, The same one who defied her in that market queue now had Charles's attention. Karen's plan was clear: control or destroy. At the hospital, Charles watched helplessly as Precious struggled through another cardiac episode. Mary's exhaustion was etched in every line of her face, her hands trembling as she clung to hope that a second surgery might save her son's life. Charles canceled the eviction in person. No fanfare, no announcement, just a red line crossing out the order. A small gesture, but for Charles, the beginning of facing what he'd avoided for so long. He began showing up in Mary's world not as the polished mogul, but as a man trying to be a father. Mary, cautious but hopeful, guarded her heart fiercely. "Don't think a few dinners change everything," she warned him. Precious started school again, but innocence didn't shield him from whispers and stares. "Your dad didn't want you," one boy taunted, a sharp knife in a child's voice. Precious's pain echoed in Charles's heart. Karen wasn't done either. She leaked medical files, stirred gossip, and tried to paint Charles as a man hiding a shameful secret. Investors called emergency meetings. Board members questioned if his personal life endangered the empire he built. Charles stood firm. "This child didn't ask for this," he said. "My silence wasn't shame, it was protection." A few heads nodded in reluctant respect. Legacy wasn't just profits, but humanity. At the Business Impact Awards, Charles brought Mary and Precious. As he accepted his humanitarian award, he spoke without naming names. "Success isn't how far you rise, it's who you take with you." Precious's whispered, "You were amazing, Daddy," was the only applause Charles needed. Karen confronted Mary outside the gala, venom dripping from every word. "You think you've won? He'll get bored." "They always do." Mary's calm smile cut deeper. "Power without peace is just noise." Mary didn't trust Karen, but she wasn't afraid. Charles had finally chosen his side. Slowly, the fractured family found rhythm. Charles cooked dinners clumsy but genuine, while Precious laughed and Mary softened, seeing a tenderness she hadn't dared expect. Mary went back to work, facing skepticism with quiet strength, showing her talent beyond sacrifice. Karen plotted still, but Charles and Mary built something real from the ashes: presence, consistency, courage. Time lost can never be reclaimed, but today's presence can heal yesterday's silence. True fatherhood isn't about perfection or wealth, it's about showing up, day after day, no matter how messy, no matter how hard. And while the storms still bruise around them, Charles knows this fight is bigger than business or gossip. It's about family, redemption, and finally standing in the light. So what do you think? When it comes to responsibility and forgiveness, where do you draw the line? Is Charles too late or just in time? And what about Karen? Is she the villain or just another player in a ruthless game? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about justice, loyalty, and what family really means in a world that often forgets both.